age, this burden, and this whole idea of being raised to take care of, to hold it down. And it's a common theme where Black women are raised to hold it down.
You look on television, it's hard to keep up because they want us to look European. It's always been that way. I mean, you look at the fake hair industry, they're not selling zip-on afros. They're not becoming billionaires because they're getting fake locks. It's a European look. So as Black women, we have this pressure from a very young age where we have to look a different way other than ourselves. And eventually, we begin to hate ourselves.
When depression gets on you, it really does wear you down. It exhausts your energy. It takes you away from your connection to positive energy, that you really do need to replenish, and refresh your perspective.
There was a certain amount of pain that I think came with me out of the womb. And I don't think anyone around me was conscious enough to be able to identify it as pain.
I believe Black people unfortunately experience a lot of emotional depression and just deal with it themselves and through family and then overcome it. I don't think we can afford the payments and whatnot for that kind of therapy and psychiatric care.
I think it's a generational thing. My father, when I told him that I went to therapy after my mom died, I tried to get him to go, therapy? Black people don't need therapy. That's for crazy Jews like Woody Allen.
There was a patch where I sought therapy and people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, don't you have family to talk to? Or why can't you just deal with it? And when you bring it up to family members who might benefit from the therapy, they just say no. So I would say for me, I was open to it, but the Black folk I know, not so much.
It was like this taboo thing for me to be in therapy because I definitely talked to everyone and it's like, man, therapy saved my life. I was like so nuts. I was like on the verge and, I told everyone, a lot of people were just like, you shouldn't tell people that you've been in therapy because you're automatically looked at as being crazy.
We just probably have nervous breakdowns all the time, whatever, and just actually struggle through it. That's what Black people do. Keep it moving.
Black folk don't commit suicide.
Seems somehow a corollary of Black folk aren't serial killers, Black folk don't do therapy, Black folk don't get depressed, right? Which seems to just go to that idea of like, we don't lose our minds and flip out.
Black folk don't commit suicide. I was just talking about this. I actually have a personal experience in my family. One of my very close family members, when I was a teenager, had a suicide attempt. The person overdosed on pills. We all went to the hospital. It was very traumatic. It was horrible. And then we came home and we never mentioned it ever again. To this day, never mentioned it, never talked about it, never got counseling.
I think the biggest reaction is that, when you're feeling that sad, you're supposed to go to the church, you go to tell somebody. You never actually do it yourself because God told you not to do it. But there was an understanding of, wow, it must have been bad. It must have been really bad for a Black person to take their own life.
When you look at the suicide rates, it is white men followed by black men, followed by white women, followed by the trend line for black women is so low that you could easily miss them on the chart. Like it's extraordinarily low. One way to read it, and I'm not sure if it's true, but one way is that black women are literally so committed to being the mule of the world. Like there's such a requirement for us to stay and be present for everybody else. And it feels to me like part of the kind of overtly self-sacrificial ways in which black women behave.
You're always putting a brave face on, eventually you're going to break down and it's just going to make things worse because you're not actually dealing with the issues that are causing you to be unhappy. And in the United States, 1 in 5 adults live with mental illness. Their leading cause of death among youth aged 10 to 24 is suicide, and a majority of these people don't go and receive treatment or professional help. Sure, when you are a student of color at a predominantly white institution or PWI, and you're a queer student, and then you're a woman, and then you're an immigrant, all of these things, all these identities that make you a minority, and then and a lot of times you're asking these people how they're doing, how they're going, and you're supporting them when you're dealing with your own things and you don't feel like you have any support system. So I would basically every day for 2 months straight, I would go to my room and I would cry myself to sleep, and it was just and I felt very alone, you know. I talked to my mother most days, but sometimes I just wanted some extra support, and people who I thought were going to be there for me and knew what I was going through just weren't, and basically cut me off. That's what broke me. And so I called like hotlines probably 3 times, and I finally decided that I was going to go and seek more professional help. I went to my university's psychiatric department that we have, and it was also a struggle for that because you have to make the appointment, and it was 2 weeks before the appointment before I went to actually saw somebody, and that was only an intake. And then when I went to that intake session, they said basically this is what we provide is short-term help, and we feel like you have a more severe situation, so we're going to refer you to have outside help. And I kind of wanted to just break down and be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. What's the point? I'm trying, and then there's all this mess. So I went to this place, I made an appointment, and I found out it was $120 per hour. And I was like, I can't afford this. And another reason that was like pressure for me during that time was so many times I wanted to leave that job, like so many times, but I kept thinking about how am I going to pay for where I'm going to live, and just thinking about how I felt kind of trapped, like I can't pay to live anywhere else and like have a job to pay for rent. And so that kind of also like made me feel even more enclosed and like I couldn't get out of the situation. And so a lot of the reasons why people don't seek help is financial reasons, and because there is a stigma associated with mental health. You're not alone, and there are people who are dealing with the same issues you are, and you shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about the issues that you're dealing with because it's really important. Recently, my pastor's son lost his battle to depression, and he was only 1 year older than me, and I felt like that could have been me. And I just felt so much for my pastor because that he was just a good man. You could just tell that. And you never know who's dealing with the same issues that you are. Someone who you would never have thought in a million years is dealing with the same issues that you are that really put things in perspective to me and made me want to share my story because, you know, I had seen some people's stories like this, and it did help to feel like you're not alone. And if this can help one person feel like they're not alone, you know, you can always email me. You'll always have somebody who's in your corner for you and who believes in you. And to seek out help. You know, don't give up if it doesn't work out the first time. You know, sometimes you'll get with a therapist and you may not mesh with them so well. Keep trying and don't give up because, you know, once you look back on that time, when I look back at that period of my life, I can't believe that I was that low. And it's not over, you know? I think I'll always be dealing with this. But just being honest about it, removing that stigma. That's the whole message for this week, is removing the stigma from mental illness. Because so many people deal with it. It's a very important issue to me, which is why now, you know, I'm starting to volunteer with this organization in my town that provides mental health services to musicians. And so even if it's out there, going into your local community and being involved with causes that you care about, it's a very important thing to do.